They say power corrupts, but what if I told you power doesn't corrupt, emotion does? You've been trained your entire life to feel everything: loyalty, love, outrage, because they know a person who feels too much can never rule. Today, we're breaking the law they'd kill to keep hidden. Secret of emotional detachment. In every empire, from the marble courts of Rome to the fluorescent halls of modern corporations, there's always been one rule whispered among the powerful: never let emotion make your decisions. While the masses are taught empathy and passion, the rulers cultivate distance. Why? Because emotional detachment isn't coldness, it's control, and control is power. Look around you. Everyone is burning with emotion: outrage online, heartbreak in silence, envy disguised as ambition. The world is addicted to feeling, and yet, the ones who rule you, they never do. You see, emotion is the leash of the weak. It pulls you toward what they want, makes you react, distracts you from thinking. They don't fear your strength, they fear your calm, because calm minds can't be controlled. They want you to believe emotion is strength, that to feel deeply, to burn with passion, to care beyond measure is what makes you human. But look closer. Every great system of control has always begun with the same tool: emotion. Not chains, not weapons, not laws. Emotion, because the moment they can make you feel, they no longer need to make you think. Fear is their oldest and most loyal servant. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of being alone. It drives you to obey before you even understand what you're obeying. You buy what you don't need. You fight battles that aren't yours. You defend ideas you never questioned. Because fear whispers, if you don't, you'll lose everything. And in that whisper lies the leash around your mind. Then there's love, the softest, sweetest poison of all. Entire empires have risen and fallen because of it. They use it to bind you to people, to brands, to nations. They teach you loyalty to symbols, not principles. They call it devotion, patriotism, unity. But behind every anthem and every flag, there's always someone who profits from your attachment. They don't need to control you directly. Your love does it for them. Anger, that's their fire. They feed it with headlines, with politics, with outrage crafted in laboratories of attention. They know that when you're angry, you stop thinking. You strike, you shout, you post, and every move you make feeds the very system you believe you're fighting. They've learned how to weaponize your reaction, to make your rebellion profitable. You think you're defying them, you're entertaining them, and then comes hope, the most deceptive of all emotions. They promise you change, progress, a better future, and you wait. You wait your entire life, chasing that light just out of reach, while the same hands that hold it keep you running in circles. Hope keeps you docile, productive, patient. You suffer today because you believe tomorrow will reward you. But that tomorrow never comes, does it? The truth is, this emotion is the invisible empire. It doesn't need borders. It doesn't need guards. It lives inside you, ruling from within. Every advertisement, every speech, every law is designed to trigger it, because emotion is energy, and energy can be harvested. They call it engagement, loyalty, devotion, but it's extraction. Your time, your attention, your focus, all drained by emotional manipulation. The crowd lives in reaction. They are moved like tides, rising in outrage, sinking in despair, swept away by trends and causes. And while the masses are busy feeling, a small few are busy deciding. Those few understand the architecture of emotion. They don't drown in it, they direct it. They know the difference between appearing passionate and being controlled by passion. They understand that emotion, when unchecked, is nothing more than a lever for someone else's power. Emotion blinds. It narrows vision until you see only what they want you to see. It turns reason into noise and obedience into instinct. You think you're acting freely, But every decision you make under emotion is a decision made for you. The moment you react, you surrender control. The game is never about who feels more, it's about who feels less. Because the one who feels less sees more. Watch the world. The angry protester, the desperate lover, the loyal follower, each one convinced they are acting out of strength. But all are driven by the same chain. Their hearts lead them, and those who lead their hearts rule them. The powerful have always known this truth. Emotion is the leash that needs no guard. It makes slaves believe they are free, and victims believe they are choosing. Once you understand this, you start to see the patterns everywhere. Why every screen screams urgency. Why every slogan pulls at your heart. Why every promise is wrapped in feeling. Because if they can keep you emotional, they can keep you obedient. The loudest crowd is always the easiest to control. The most passionate believer is always the easiest to betray. Emotion creates movement, but not direction. It gives you motion without clarity, passion without purpose, noise without control. They will tell you to care more, feel more, love more, rage more, but never to understand more. Because understanding is what breaks the spell. Understanding reveals that emotion isn't power at all, it's the current that carries your power away. And until you step outside that current, you'll never see who's standing on the shore, watching you drown and smiling. The powerful are never driven by emotion. They may display it, they may even simulate it, but never do they feel it the way ordinary people do. Every smirk, every tear, every pause in their speech calculated. Because emotion, when wielded strategically, becomes an instrument of control. And the ones who master that performance are the ones who never fall victim to it. History does not remember those who felt deeply. It remembers those who used feeling as a weapon. Caesar's mercy, Cleopatra's charm, Napoleon's confidence, none of it was real compassion or sentiment. It was design. They learned that emotion is a language the masses understand, and they spoke it fluently without believing a word of it. While others were consumed by their passions, they studied them as a scientist studies a disease. This is the strategic coldness of the masters. They don't suppress their emotions, they detach from them. They observe their anger without becoming it, their fear without obeying it. To them, emotion is a tool to measure the world, not a force to be ruled by. When insulted, they analyze. When betrayed, they wait. When tempted, they calculate. And because of that, they remain untouchable. You see, the crowd believes passion equals authenticity. They worship those who appear emotional, the leader who cries, the artist who rages, the lover who swears devotion. But the true rulers understand that emotion, when displayed, is theater. It earns loyalty, sympathy, admiration. People trust what feels real, even when it's a lie. The masters project emotion outward, but never allow it to infect them inward. They remain calm inside the storm, while the rest mistake performance for truth. A powerful man knows that rage clouds judgment. So when others shout, he listens. When others react, he plans. When the world burns in chaos, he studies the fire and waits for it to consume his enemies. That patience, that unshakable composure, is not coldness. It's superiority of mind. Emotional control is not about being heartless. It's about being effective, because the one who rules himself never kneels to circumstance. In the courts of kings, in the boardrooms of corporations, in the algorithms that run your digital life, the same principle reigns. Appear human, but think mechanical. Show warmth, but never surrender to it. People are drawn to what they trust, and they trust what looks like them. So the strategist cloaks his detachment in the illusion of humanity. He smiles at the right moment, feigns humility, pretends to care because emotion, displayed at will, opens doors reason alone never could. Even in betrayal, the masters do not rage. They study the traitor's motive, the weakness exploited, the lesson revealed. Every emotion they might have felt becomes intelligence. Every wound becomes knowledge. The weak call this cold, the wise call it discipline. They understand that to feel everything is to see nothing, but to feel nothing is to see everything. The cold strategist does not avoid love, he reframes it. He does not reject loyalty, he negotiates it. To him, every bond is a contract, every relationship an exchange of value. The illusion of warmth disarms those around him, makes them open, honest, predictable. And predictability is power. Once you can anticipate emotion, you can control the outcome. The master never enters the game of feelings unarmed. He plays it knowing every rule, every weakness, every predictable reaction. Think of the greatest manipulators in history. They all understood one truth: people want to believe in passion because it excuses their lack of discipline. The crowd loves heroes who act from emotion because it makes their own chaos feel justified. But the ones who move history forward do not act from passion, they act from position. Passion burns fast, but position endures. When a ruler appears moved by the people's cries, it's not compassion. It's timing. When a leader shows rage against his enemies, it's not fury. It's strategy. Emotion to them is camouflage. They wear it to blend into the human theater, to avoid suspicion, to influence hearts while keeping their own untouchable. They've learned that the most dangerous thing you can do is to show what you truly feel. Because once the world knows your triggers, it owns you. So they erase their tells. No visible anger, no visible fear. Just composure, absolute, unnerving composure. This calmness unsettles others, breaks their rhythm, forces them to reveal themselves. The master uses silence the way others use weapons. He knows that the emotional man talks too much, reacts too soon, exposes too quickly. But the detached one, he lets the world come to him. The powerful understand that the mind is a kingdom. Emotions are its citizens, loud, restless, demanding. The weak let them riot. The strong rule them with order and law. In that internal peace, the master finds his advantage. While others are fighting themselves, he is already planning his next conquest. That is the secret history never teaches, that behind every great act of power, there is not passion, but precision. Now that you've seen the architecture of control, you have a choice. You can return to the noise, to the endless, emotional traps, to the manipulation that thrives on your reaction, or you can rise above it. Detach, observe, reclaim your mind. Every time you refuse to react, every time you choose calm over chaos, you step closer to mastery. That's where power begins, not in dominating others, but in mastering yourself. If you felt something shift while listening, don't let it fade. This knowledge is useless unless you apply it. Train your focus, guard your emotions, study human behavior the way they study you. Because once you understand how emotion rules the world, you can walk through it untouched. Follow this path, learn the hidden laws they never wanted you to know. Subscribe, share this message, spread it not as entertainment, but as preparation. You are not meant to live as a pawn. You are meant to rule your mind, and through it, your world. Remember, they control the emotional. They fear the detached. Be the one they cannot move. Every empire begins with one conquest, not of land, not of people, but of the self. The greatest illusion in the pursuit of power is the belief that control over others comes first. It does not. The one who cannot rule himself is unfit to rule anyone. Before a man can command obedience, he must first silence the rebellion within his own mind. That is the hidden law: control of self before control of others. The world is filled with people trying to dominate, to persuade, to manipulate. But look closely, and you'll see that most are not rulers, they are prisoners. Prisoners of desire, of anger, of insecurity. They wear crowns made of ego and call it power, but they are ruled by every emotion that passes through them. They believe control means bending others to their will, but true control is bending yourself to your purpose. The crowd fears being controlled. The master fears losing control of himself. You can't command loyalty if you can't command your words. You can't build an empire if you crumble at insult. You can't direct others if you are still reacting to shadows. The first throne you must occupy is inside your own head. When you learn to rule there, the outer world bends effortlessly to your will. Because people instinctively follow those who are unmoved, they trust calmness. They obey certainty. They are drawn to those who seem beyond the reach of chaos. Power begins with restraint. To act only when the moment serves you, to speak only when words advance you, to walk away when emotion tempts you to stay, that is self-command. Every ruler you've ever studied, every tactician who's ever shaped history, mastered this law. They did not rise because they were the strongest or the loudest. They rose because they had the patience to control their impulses, while others destroyed themselves chasing temporary satisfaction. Control of self is not suppression, it's understanding. You study your own desires until they can no longer trick you. You dissect your fears until they lose their teeth. You analyze your anger until it becomes a weapon you can aim. The weak react, the strong choose. The moment you can choose your emotional response instead of being dragged by it, you have taken the first step into real power. This law is hidden for a reason, because if every person learned it, no one could be manipulated. Governments would lose their grip. Corporations would lose their consumers. Influencers would lose their followers. The entire structure of society depends on you being emotionally predictable, angry when provoked, happy when rewarded, desperate when deprived. But a self-controlled mind breaks that pattern. It stops feeding the machine. It becomes ungovernable. The strategist uses this understanding as armor. When others try to provoke him, he sees the trap. He feels the rise of emotion, but he does not answer it. He watches the manipulation form in real time, as if he were standing outside himself, observing the battlefield. In that moment, he holds the advantage. Because the manipulator relies on reaction, and when reaction does not come, their power collapses. The master knows that stillness is not weakness. It's the highest form of warfare. Control of self gives birth to something rare: emotional independence. You stop needing validation. You stop seeking revenge. You stop craving recognition. Every external force that once pulled you becomes irrelevant. You move through the world unshaken, while others waste their lives chasing approval. That serenity intimidates people. They can't understand it, so they label it arrogance. But it's not arrogance, it's mastery. A man who commands himself radiates authority without ever speaking. His presence unsettles those who lack discipline. They feel small around him because he reflects their chaos back to them. The undisciplined see him as cold, but he's not. He's focused. He has simply learned that emotion is a currency too valuable to spend on impulse. He invests it where it multiplies his advantage. Control of self is the silent origin of influence. Because people instinctively follow those who cannot be shaken, they see in them what they wish they could be: composed, fearless, deliberate. Leadership is not granted by position, it's earned by discipline. The ability to stay calm when others panic, to think clearly under pressure, to respond without haste. That is what separates rulers from followers. And yet, this law remains hidden because it destroys the illusion of helplessness. The system thrives on people who believe their emotions are uncontrollable, who believe their reactions are natural and justified. But the truth is, control is always a choice. It is not given by birth or luck. It's forged through awareness. Once you learn to pause before you act, to think before you feel, to choose before you speak, you become something rare in a world driven by impulse. The ancient philosophers, the generals, the strategists, they all understood it. To command an army, first command your temper. To win a negotiation, first win over your ego. To master the game, first master the player yourself. Everything external is a reflection of what you've conquered internally. The battlefield outside mirrors the one within. Those who lose the inner war will always serve those who have already won theirs. Emotional detachment is not emptiness, it is freedom. It is the quiet separation between you and the chaos of the world. It is the point where nothing can touch you unless you allow it. When you reach detachment, you stop being a player moved by others' emotions and start becoming the architect of the game itself. It is not about not feeling, it's about not being owned by what you feel. Every system around you depends on your attachment to approval, to comfort, to identity. They sell you products by attaching your worth to possessions. They control you by attaching your dignity to validation. They make you chase a vision of success that was never yours, then watch you exhaust yourself in pursuit of it. The moment you detach, their influence collapses because they cannot manipulate what they cannot move. Detachment is power because it erases leverage. The one who cannot be provoked cannot be ruled. The one who does not crave cannot be bought. The one who needs nothing cannot be broken. This is why true independence begins not with wealth, but with detachment. You can strip a detached person of everything, and they still remain whole. Because what they are cannot be taken, it was never built on external things. The world worships attachment. They tell you to love endlessly, to care constantly, to invest your emotions in everything and everyone. But attachment, when blind, becomes dependence. And dependence is a silent form of slavery. The more you tie your peace to others, the more power you give them over you. They become the gatekeepers of your happiness, the authors of your mood, the unseen masters of your state of mind. Detachment severs those invisible strings one by one. It teaches you that peace isn't found in others, it's found in control of yourself. The detached mind doesn't run away from emotion, it observes it. Anger rises, and you watch it like smoke, visible, real, but without substance. Fear whispers, and you listen without obedience. Desire appears, and you see it for what it is. A passing signal, not a command. Most people live as prisoners of every passing emotion. The detached person lives above them, aware, composed, deliberate. This liberation terrifies the world because a detached individual is uncontrollable. You cannot threaten someone who accepts loss. You cannot seduce someone who sees through praise. You cannot enslave someone who does not seek comfort. Detachment breaks the entire economy of manipulation, the political, the emotional, the psychological. It turns every attempt to control you into noise that never reaches the center of your being. The masters of history all understood this. The strategist who doesn't flinch when betrayed, the leader who smiles when outnumbered, the ruler who sacrifices what others would die to keep, they are detached. To them, emotion is not a storm but a signal. They navigate it without getting lost. That calm in chaos, that stillness in noise, that is what makes others follow them. People are drawn to stability, and detachment is the purest form of stability. The detached person doesn't resist the world, they redirect it. When insulted, they do not defend. When flattered, they do not bend. When attacked, they do not panic. Their mind becomes an empty space where strategies are born, not reactions. And in that emptiness lies creation, because only when the mind is free from reaction can it truly see the game as it is. This detachment is not coldness. It's clarity. Coldness comes from hatred. Detachment comes from understanding. The detached person sees beyond personal interest, beyond emotion, beyond fear. They see patterns. They see motives. They see the machinery behind people's actions. And because they see it, they are never surprised, never wounded, never confused. They move like water, adapting, shifting, but never losing form. The world calls detachment loneliness, but it is not. It's solitude. Loneliness is a craving for connection. Solitude is mastery over it. In solitude, you do not depend on others for your sense of self. You become whole without external validation. The detached person walks alone not because they reject the world, but because they no longer need it to define who they are. To live detached is to live untouchable. It doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you care wisely. You no longer invest emotion in things that cannot sustain it. You choose what deserves your energy and what does not. Detachment filters the world, allowing only what strengthens you to enter and letting everything else pass like wind through an open door. The truth is, detachment is the end of manipulation and the beginning of mastery. The moment you stop needing their approval, they lose control. The moment you stop fearing their rejection, they lose influence. The moment you stop reacting to their games, they lose power. Detachment does not make you superior, it makes you free. Because freedom is not about having everything, it's about needing nothing. Everything they ever taught you about strength was a lie. They told you power comes from wealth, from force, from status. But true power has always been internal, invisible, silent, absolute. It begins where emotion ends. The world thrives on your reactions. It feeds on your anger, your need, your hope, your endless hunger to be seen, heard, and loved. But once you step beyond that cycle, once you learn to master your own mind, the game changes. You stop being a piece on the board and become the one who moves the pieces. Emotional detachment is not about rejecting life. It's about reclaiming it. It's about standing in the storm and feeling nothing but clarity. It's about seeing manipulation for what it is and walking away untouched. You stop chasing meaning in others and begin creating it within yourself. That is liberation, not from the world, but from the invisible strings that once controlled you. Control of self is the foundation. Strategic coldness is the method. Detachment is the reward. And together, they form the law the powerful have always known and never shared. The less you feel, the more you see. The less you need, the more you rule. So, step back from the noise, withdraw your emotion, let the world rage and tremble while you remain still. Because in that stillness, you become something rare, something untouchable. And that is the secret they would kill to keep hidden.